Well, welcome
I,
back, everybody. It's Jack Graham and John Pedersen with another podcast. We talk photo. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for taking some time to check us out today. We have another in a long line of really great guests that we've been fortunate to have. John, right over the past how many
Indeed.
years? 29
Five.
2019 we started this. I think we're up to about 150 episodes now.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it's a lot of fun. But today we have Brenda Tharp. Brenda is we everybody we bring up here, we Brenda's just another in a long line of really amazing photographers, amazing people, and have some great stories to share. And that's why she's here. Brenda, thank you for taking some time. And I guess we're going to get into. You could tell everybody where you're at.
well, yeah. First off, I want to say thanks for inviting me to come on this. I think what you guys are doing is great because it just shares the passion that we all have, and it showcases us all in a way that's really special. So thank you for that. I'm honored to
Yeah,
be here.
there's so many podcasts now, and a lot of them say the same stuff. It's like going to YouTube, right, John?
Yeah.
And
Oh
look at
yeah.
these
Same
videos,
content.
10 tips to Photoshop and 10 tips to Lightroom and do this to do that. So we
Oh,
try
you
to,
mean we're not doing that? I prepared notes on Photoshop techniques.
no, no,
Oh
no, no.
God.
Yeah, no, but we try to do some things different. And the people we bring on, believe it or not, you know, we try to be a little selective, and that's why we have people like you here. And thank you for
Oh,
being here. Brenda, take a minute for those of you who don't know Brenda. Brenda's, nobody's older than me, but Brenda's a real veteran in the photography, nature photography business, and has a lot to share with everybody. And maybe just bring everybody up to date, Brenda, and what you're doing, what you've been doing, and whatever.
Well, historically, yes, I've been in nature photography for a long time. Also branching out into doing travel photography, leading international photo tours for a number of years. But more recently, I'd say like in the past 5, 6 years, swinging it back into my roots, which is a passion for nature and wildlife. And so that's where my focus has been more lately. I'm teaching workshops in the field on nature photography and still doing that. And I do a bunch of different presentations for camera clubs and some photo conferences and so forth. So I'm keeping very active that way and still spinning around lots of ideas in my head for ebooks and some of my own webinar tutorials. It never stops. And you mentioned, nobody's older than you, Jack, but I think I'm close. But the thing is, as photographers, we never stop. I mean, I always
right.
joke and say the best thing is if I just fall over dead with a camera in my hand, right? Because I can't imagine not doing photography. Retirement, what is that?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
something that creatives really do and think about. So, but that's kind of where I'm at. You're active and trying to just get all the ideas that are spinning around in here out into something that I can share with the world.
So,
Do you have
so Brenda, as we were talking before the show, you kind of around this whole pursuit of continual pursuit of things. You were saying that you were living in your van in New Mexico, and so are you sort of a nomadic person? Would you say?
Yes, I am a digital nomad, if that's the phrase we want to use.
Yeah,
A
sure.
van lifer. There's all these different ways that people describe us homeless, which we're not. But yeah, in 2020, when, of course, the pandemic hit, all of us had a lot of business go in the tank because field workshops were not happening.
Yeah.
And Jed and I had been talking for a while about wanting to hit the road and do more exploration. And the problem with car camping is that with two people, it's really complex. You're moving stuff all around a lot, it's cramped. And we decided we wanted something better. So in about May of 2020, because we had a lot of time to think, we said, well, do we want to pull a trailer and have a truck, or do we want to just get like a an old VW bus because we used to have one of those and loved it. And we decided that we would buy a Sprinter van, a Mercedes Sprinter van, a blank panel van. And after watching, you mentioned YouTube videos. Well, after watching countless YouTube videos, we thought, how hard could it be to convert this ourselves? And of course, our brains were thinking we were 25-year-olds,
Yeah.
but our bodies were thinking differently. No, I mean, it was a challenge. It was a challenge because we had never converted a van before. We had electrical and plumbing. We had the layout to consider. We had to figure it in the way of two people living in it full time. What do you need? What don't you need? Blah, blah, blah. And so it took us, and of course, supply and demand crashed as well. So it took us a good 2 years to get it finished. And in October of 22, we hit the road and we left the house that we had in Santa Rosa. We were renting at the time, so we didn't sell, but we just moved out, put everything that we had left in storage, and went out from there. And so it's been 3+ years that we've been living on the road full time and just loving it from a standpoint of being able to do what we wanted to do, which is immerse ourselves in the environment and to be able to stay, the luxury of being able to stay for a week if you're waiting for the weather to be right. You know how frustrating that can be. You lead a workshop and you've got great light for the group, and then you're planning on 3 extra days for yourself, and it rains the whole 3 days. You can't guarantee that you're going to get that. So we've had this luxury of being able to say, well, let's just give it another 2 days and see what happens. And that has been really special. And I think that slowing down and really taking time to explore an area has also helped me see more deeply the what's right around me. And so that's kind of why we got into it. And we figured that we would just keep running our business from the road. So that's what we've been up to.
You have Skylink,
Starlink. Yeah.
Starlink.
Yes, we
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
And we really struggled about whether to get it or not, simply because of all the stuff we now know more about Musk. But back in the time, we tried different setups and they just weren't as stable in remote areas. And that's the thing. As a nature photographer, we want to go to remote areas. It's not like we're hanging out in Fresno. So we we planned a trip with our good friend Lewis Kemper, who also got a van, and he had his converted by somebody else. But in summer of 2023, we caravanned up into British Columbia, the Arctic Ocean, and Alaska. And we had Starlink for that. And it was a good thing because everything else, if we got data, SIM cards, and all that stuff, it was going to cost us a lot of money to be able to stay connected. So that's what started it. And then since then, we've discovered that we can't do business without a reliable internet
yeah.
connection. And it's been that for us.
Brenda, I kid John all the time that and I know you were in the same boat when we got in this business, there was no internet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Think
Right.
about that. And
Yeah.
and we, I was sharing a mailing list with Bob Hitchman. I mean, that
You were
was how you,
sharing it. How nice.
yeah, and that's how you did things. And we're really spoiled now with all this stuff. But
Oh, it's so true. Yeah.
so have you been in any places that you had to go find a smaller vehicle to get in, or I mean,
Yes.
are you been able to navigate this thing?
Well, yeah, we bought the 170 version, which is the longer version, because again, two of us living full time. We thought this is going to be like
Sure.
Raccoon Age, and so we love it. The one regret, and we're probably going to be changing that soon, is that we can't separate from the vehicle. And
Right.
so I'll tell you a short version of it, but we were new to this and we thought we've got four-wheel drive, the van is lifted, we've got an air compressor on board, we're ready. And so we're in the Escalante area, and we see this, we go down Smoky
Yep.
Mountain Road, I think it's called. Yeah.
Yep.
We go down that dirt road, it's fine. And then we thought we were going to this really cool area of rocks and we couldn't find it. So rather than go back up the road, I used my Gaia app. I looked at it and I said, oh, well, there's a shortcut if we take left-hand Colette Canyon, right?
Not in
So
Escalante.
so we said, okay, let's do this, right? So we were driving on this dirt road and it seemed fine. And then we crossed the creek bed once or twice, but then we were on normal dirt road again and it was fine. It was graded, actually. I mean, it looked pretty good. So then it started to get dicey. And at that point, I said, I think we should turn around. And Jed said, well, let's just go a little further. If it does get bad, we'll turn around. Well, what neither of us thought about was that maybe we can't turn around. So as the road narrowed down and we were actually now in the creek bed, we couldn't get the vehicle turned around. So we had no choice but to go forward. And forward was the great unknown. It could be a drop off of a waterfall. We had no idea. So the stress level was like really high because this is our home and it's our baby and we're new to this. And I'm thinking, Sikorsky helicopter to get us out of there, literally. That's what it would
Yeah.
have taken.
Yeah. No
So, but
doubt.
we had food, we had water, we had heat in the van. And so we said, okay, if it takes us 3 days to build a Roman road, we'll do it. And so a couple times we had to throw big rocks into the creek in order to build up a level that we could drive through so it didn't drop down and land on the axle and or the frame. And it took us about 3 hours to go 11 miles, but we did it. We got out of that alive. And
Yeah.
and after that we said never again. So we're
Yeah.
very careful now, but we're probably going to pick up a two-seater Jeep that allows us to explore further because we're really frustrated that we can't get some places, even
Yeah.
with
Right.
four-wheel drive and all.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Brenda, let's talk a little bit about your photography. One of the things that really strikes me with your work is I feel very connected. I feel you're very connected to your subject. And maybe that's just your style or how you shoot, but it really feels like you pay a lot of attention to what you're doing and what you're shooting. And I just get this really connected is the best word I have for it. How would you talk about your creative process?
Well, thank you for that, first off, because if you've observed that and felt that, then that means that I'm hopefully expressing my emotions and feelings through the work, shooting what I feel, not what I see. And I have followed that for a long time. I'm really, really into the intimate landscape and or small scenes
Yeah,
without getting into macro in that sense. It's that section in between the grand and the macro that I really love. It comes natural to me, and I think it comes from my love of visual design, the textures, the patterns, the lines, shapes, and all that really showed themselves well in that intimate view. I approach, Usually, I approach a situation with an open mind. I don't go out with this idea that I'm going to get a cactus against the sandstone or late recently an agave plant filled with snow. It's just going out and staying open in an area that I know has potential and reacting to what I see. And it's that reaction, that connection, as you say, John, that I think is what I'm trying to express through the work. And that's careful composition and viewpoint. But it's also just I don't know how to describe it really, but it's a love for what I'm seeing.
Mm,
But it just gets me so excited that somehow that translates, and that's my goal anyway, is to translate that into the pictures. And I don't think everyone resonates with it because there's people out there, as we know, that are grand landscape photographers and they're super at it. They're wonderful. And they may just not see or feel the same way about what's close. But all these things that get ignored in the intimate landscape, they all make up that grand landscape. And so it's kind of like I've taken it as my job to show some of that, you know?
yeah.
If you go back, for the folks that are listening to this or watching on YouTube, if you go back to, the past, John, what, maybe 50 to 100 podcasts we've done, that one theme has resonated throughout. And that's to folks, take your time and look, because when we do our image reviews, Brenda, a lot of times, somebody will show us a great image, but man, there's 5 photographs in that image. And the trick is to explore, and
Well, I think, yeah,
do what you're
I think
doing.
adding to that, I think Brenda, you said it at the very start, which is number one, slowing down, which we all preach. You can't see if you're running around with your head cut off, right? The thing that I really love that you said is you love your subject, you love the experience, and that makes you very present in the moment, which I think also helps us to create these more connected photographs. One of the things that comes through with me, Brenda, is you're very present. And I think slowing down and being connected and loving what you do helps you be very present in the moment to see those pattern shapes, textures, and colors in that intimate landscape.
Well, and I think it's exciting. I mean, you both are, you're both still teaching. And again, we're never going to stop.
Mhm.
And teaching some of the same things, especially because we're old enough to have been film photographers, right? So let's face it. So when I got into teaching digital, I went digital only because all of my clients were coming, my students were, they went digital, and suddenly they're talking a landscape that I didn't understand. And so I had to get into digital enough to understand what a histogram was and explain that and so forth. And then I started realizing that so many people that were getting into photography jumped into it when it became very accessible via digital means. And they did not have that studied craft and the upbringing, if you will, of what we had in the craft of photography and the craft of vision. And so, and it was too easy. We always heard people say, "Oh, I'll fix it in Photoshop."
Yep.
Well, no, get it right in camera, as right as possible anyway. And so that became like a mantra for me, when teaching, is to try and get people to be present and to really mind their craft and perfect their craft, hone it so that that became second nature, so that they could then be in the right brain, excited, passionate side and stay there long enough to really make something of what they were seeing.
Yeah. And it's become a repetitive thing, John, with people that we've talked to here on the podcast. Everybody is out to take a photograph to throw up on Facebook and be told how great they are. And I keep going back. I've got this beautiful table in our eating area, and it was custom made. It wasn't cheap, but it's not from Costco. It's not from IKEA. It's custom made by a craftsman, and there's no difference between that table and taking a photograph. And I mean, sometimes when that shutter button gets pressed, and not that you don't want to see the image, but you've accomplished what you set out to do, and to me, that's the fun of it. And I think, Brenda, it sounds like you're in the same boat. And again, you know, and digital photography is great, and it, it's just so many advantages. The learning curve is great. There's so many advantages, but the disadvantages is that um, certain processing programs and certain ways that people do things can cover up the myriad of mistakes and stuff that
Yeah,
makes a good image not a great image.
yeah. Well, and I think too, photography is still, it's a creative art form, just like painting. And you acquire certain skills that you need to not just record what you're seeing, but hopefully translate what you're seeing and feeling into that final image. And a lot of people are not really skilled at the technical part of it in terms of processing. So I think initially, Photoshop really overwhelmed people. They didn't know how or what to do with it, and they overprocessed their pictures, or they didn't process them enough and the raw files were flat. And so there's been this sort of struggle, even as people get into it now, which is why there's all these other programs like Lightroom and Luminar and things that are attempting to make the processing end of it easier so that people are not struggling with that technical side. So digital, I mean, it has its advantages. Like you said, I just think that people have forgotten the importance of the initial image and why they're making it and trying to get it most right in the camera so that they don't have to do as much to it later on.
You want to get your workshop attendees angry? Tell
Yeah.
them they could only go out and take 24 images.
Uh-huh. I've done it.
Okay. And you're at ISO 125 and you can't go any higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just, I don't want to sound like the get off my lawn angry old guy. I'm not at all. I think what's going on is fine. But learn to be a craftsman. We keep saying this, John. I know that people may be sick of hearing it from us and hearing it from other people who are craftsmen that are doing what we're doing here. But Brenda is so right.
Yep. Yep.
She's
Yeah,
so
you
right.
have to. Well, I think the digital part too for me is sort of. I think things have almost gotten so easy in a way that it's you don't need to learn the craft to produce decent work. I think you're able to get around it. Hit the auto button and you're good to go. And so I think that the craft has suffered a little bit. And I think, Brenda, you talked about sort of being a champion for the intimate landscape. I think I also like to think of myself as a little bit of a champion from the craft perspective. I mean, we got to teach people to see and to appreciate the craft because that's for a lot of us that's a large part of the enjoyment of this pursuit of this art form.
Absolutely. In my
10,000 hours.
Yeah,
10,000.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. When I teach workshops, one of the first things I do typically is I ask everyone, and they don't have to, sometimes I have them write it down and I read some of them anonymously. Sometimes it's just more of I want them to internalize why they photograph, to get in touch before they jump into a week in Capitol Reef or Death Valley.
Yeah.
Why do they photograph? What is it that they're trying to do with their photography? Not just career-wise, but just, making the image and just have them slow it down and get more in touch with that. And I think that that makes a difference, because especially when workshop students are arriving to a location, I know they're coming with this mental checklist of, I want to get this, I want to get that. I've seen all these pictures, and wow, that was killer. I want to get into the dunes right away, and do whatever. And I kind of put the brakes on it and say, just we've got 5 days here, let's take our time and let's think about why we're photographing. Is it to celebrate the beauty that we're seeing? Is it to get likes on Instagram or Facebook? and just kind of have them start thinking about that so that they're approaching it with more of a personal vision point of view. Because John, you mentioned, we were talking about likes and Instagram, comments and whatever. And I post more because I'm in the business and I'm trying to keep that presence out there and it helps draw people to the workshops and so forth. But boy, I could do without some of this,
Oh
because
yeah.
I'm really tired. I mean, and we're all guilty of it, but
Not
fall,
me. I do
well,
zero social media.
see,
Zero.
yeah,
None.
good
I
for
don't want to
you.
get into it. Don't want to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, let's take example fall. Fall comes around, and oh my God, the internet explodes with images from Colorado and Utah and other parts of the world and states. But it's a big concentration in the Rocky Mountains and the fall in the Eastern Sierra.
Zero.
It's like, oh my God, picture after picture after picture. And so you get to a point where you're like, yeah, okay, fine, like,
Hmm.
move on. And there's no connection or depth to your experience in seeing all that. And it just Caddo Lake is another one. I would love to go to Caddo Lake. But this fall, I got really tired of seeing so many images from Caddo Lake in succession in a
Right.
short period of time because that's when everybody was there, for the peak color or whatever. And some of them were outstanding images and I still plan to go there at some point. But it made me aware of how we're like lemmings in a way, that we're all just following, oh, this is like the place to go now for
It's the
fall.
hot spot. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great for workshop leaders and instructors. I don't argue that. But it just kind of perpetuates that whole thing about not doing your own thing. It just kind of encourages that to some degree. I don't know.
You know what
Yeah.
the
Drives me
cool you know
so
what the cool
hard
thing
now.
about Cato is, and I've got two filled workshops there ready this fall. But the cool thing is that it's very similar to the Palouse in Death Valley in that it's even Olympic. It's so overwhelming that you have to simplify, and if you don't simplify, you're going to fail down there. It's not an easy place to photograph.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
what I was going to just say, again, I'm not picking on anybody. Please, if you post on Facebook and Instagram, God bless you. But if we screen shared here, John, right now, and we get a lot of people angry, and we went to Facebook and started critiquing the images on Facebook that have 8 million likes, most of them are very average photographs. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And when you see something that a Lewis Kemper posts or a Charles Glatzer posts or somebody like that, I almost guarantee you it's going to be or Brenda, it's going to be a very artful thing. But somebody puts these images up and they're the same crap. Pardon my expression. And they got 9 million likes from people who can't even spell photography. It's an
Yeah.
amazing thing.
Well, Brenda, let me ask you. So,
And
kind
then
of
I
one
got
of the
everybody mad at me,
yeah,
John. You took
I
over.
know. We'll change the subject.
Yeah.
Kind of one of the undercurrents I think to this conversation a little bit is about people finding, being connected internally, figuring out what they want to do, why are they doing this, which kind of goes to this sort of underlying current for me of people that are continually ask the question, what's my style? How do I find my style? I mean, I get that question as you probably do a ton. How do you answer that for people?
Well, typically I say you don't find your style, style finds you
Yes, ma'am.
in a nutshell. Oh, did I answer that correctly?
A hundred
Yeah.
percent.
Really, really
A
nervous
hundred
there.
Yeah, that's
percent.
awesome.
100%.
But
Well,
it is
100%.
true.
but let me actually pause right there to say, your style finds you, and that's only if you do some introspection, I think, in your catalog and observing what you're shooting and what gets your interest. only if you do that introspection can you spot that style that's finding you.
Exactly. Yes. And that was the next thing I was going to say is that if you think, like people are in pursuit of style, go back and look. And it's wonderful that we have this digital catalog to be able to sit and have 5 cups of coffee and go through and say, oh, look at this. These are the pictures. These are my top, 4-star rated or 5-star rated, and what's common about them? Oh, well, I see a lot of graphic design in my
Yeah.
pictures, the ones that I like the most, not the ones that Instagram likes the most, but the ones I like the most out of my catalog have these characteristics, And I remember a presentation, Seth Resnick, we were both talking at a photo conference, and he talked about that he photographs sort of based on keywords that come up for him. And so he went through his catalog one time and he wrote down a set of keywords that came to him when he was looking at his, what he called his favorite images, and began to realize that a lot of what he was photographing was things that were more esoteric, spirituality, and I can't think of all words now, but it was just that he formed that keyword list, and that kind of informed his style of his photography, his approach. And I think that's what you're saying, John, is just, being introspective, looking at not only even your own work, but looking at other photographers' work. If you're going to take the time to really look at other photographers' work who you admire, ask yourself, what is it about their image that speaks to
Yes.
you, or a collection of their images? you know, Bill Neal and I are like kindred spirits when, at least I think so, when it comes to how we see the intimate world and the visual design elements that he sees. And his work has resonated with me for a long time. And that's why, because of that similarity, and the stuff that he's drawn to is the same, not subject matter, but the same elements and feelings that draw us to photograph what we photograph. So I think that's how people find a style, is just being introspective and willing to take a good deep look at what it is in their work that seems to be repetitive, if you will.
Repetitive in a good way. Yes.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
Yeah.
Brenda, do you find yourself as the years go by, kind of simplifying your everything, even down to your gear? I bet you're carrying less junk than we used to carry 10 years ago. Am I
Well,
correct?
you are correct. Part of that started because we were like, okay, we've got a van. We have to fit everything times two. So we have 2 tripods, 2 laptops, 2 arrays, 2 camera bags, and how are we going to deal with our photo gear? And so I'm carrying still a little bit more than I probably need to. But it's not like I can say, well, at the end of this trip, I'm going to definitely put my such and such lens back in the bag. No, I better have it with me if I decide that. So in our storage compartments that we have, I have a little camera insert that has a 20 1.8 for, or 1.2, I forget now, but it's for star photography. I don't carry that in my backpack all the time, but I'll put it in there when it comes time that I know I'm going to be wanting to do some star stuff. And I have a fast 24 that I initially bought for that as well, and decided I wanted a wider lens. I could probably sell it. It's sitting there collecting dust, and that's a shame. But I've tried to simplify it. And I've not been in love with the zoom lenses entirely still in terms of
I agree.
sharpness and resolve, but we've had, in a way, you have to accept that. I say Jen and I, because we both have a similar range. He's Nikon and I'm Sony, so that way we don't fight over gear.
Cool.
It would make it simpler, but we couldn't share a lens if you tried. And so I have a Sony 2 to 600. And I love that lens for the flexibility that it provides me when we're out and about photographing wildlife. We have situations where the bison are close and the 200, they fill the frame. Other times we need the 600 for, like we were just at the birds in Bosque, and you need that reach. So you accept some of the the quality issues that come with zoom lenses if they give you the working range that you need. And with today's DxO Labs, I use that to run my images through a lot, and that really improves things if I have anything that I feel is soft due to a lens. But that 2 to 600 Sony, I'm loving it. And now I'm tempted because they've got the other one that's I think 4 to 800, and I can't have both. So I have to accept less gear and work with what you have. And since wildlife is not my main thing, it doesn't make sense to have a lot of extra stuff for that.
We
So
are
I,
so spoiled. We
aren't
are
we though?
so.
Yeah, we are.
I remember I used to have a Nikon 500 f4, and the thing was almost as tall as I was,
I had
and
yeah.
and it weighed about 90,000 pounds with no autofocus. Remember?
Oh, the Canon was only
Yeah.
85,000 pounds, so it was better. It was
Yeah,
better.
I had the
But yeah,
Canon 500 f4, and it was a monster.
Canon gave me that lens back when I was getting great support from Canon for workshops. They gave me that lens, and I loved it. And it was so funny because one of the years I took it up to Lake Clark, Silver Salmon Creek Lodge, and the bears were too close,
Yeah,
and
we have that problem.
I had to
Yeah,
back up into the next county, almost across
yeah,
Coquitlam, because
yeah.
they literally were too close. And I thought, ooh, this is difficult with a fixed lens. What do I do? So the zoom lenses, of course, really have, made that easier, but I still love those long primes. It's just
How do
not.
you plan your trips, Brenda? I mean, how do you decide? I know there's probably planned around your workshops as well, but when you're going somewhere on your own, and I mean, this endless place. How do you figure out where you want to go?
That is $1 million question. Do we have another hour for the podcast? No. So it is difficult because what we started out doing was initially was just because we could, we were driving everywhere, and that started to make us crazy because we weren't staying put long enough to really, explore someplace in depth. So after fall of 22 and then the summer of 23, we changed it and we slowed it down and we said, okay, we love the Southwest, we love the West in general. And so like now we're down here. Um, it kind of we went through Yellowstone. We met up with Lewis Kemper there. We were in Yellowstone in the Tetons. Then we needed some van work done in Salt Lake, and after Salt Lake, we had a workshop in Capitol Reef. So we did that, and then we just kind of migrated down this direction. And part of it was to see friends, and part of it was to go to Bosque, which we love. And it's been probably the harder thing. For example, this coming year that we're already in, I brought it up, but I talked about going up into Canada's maritime provinces for late summer and through autumn to be able to explore the beautiful areas of Newfoundland, having seen Richard Martin's gorgeous work, from his
Great
workshop.
place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've wanted to see that. I've been up into a little bit of New Brunswick and of course Maine for fall color. And years ago I did a story assignment for a magazine, for Islands magazine actually, on Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Although they had me there in August and it was brutal, but
Mm.
I wanted to go back in autumn. So we're looking at making that big trek across the country, so that in late August and all the way through into late October, early November, depending on how things are going, we'll be up in that area. And then, and then we have family. I have family in Maine, and we'll go there and we'll spend 3 or 4 weeks there visiting before we head back. But that all depends because now that we're on the East Coast, if we follow that plan and we're getting into November, December timeframe, we're close enough to hopefully be able to get up north into Canada and maybe get into where the owls are, because I love birds and I'd love to go up and photograph the owls, but I don't know if the timing's right, if I have to wait a few more months for that or not. But we're kind of loose gooses that way, you know. We're trying to be aware of the fact that we're burning fossil fuels and this lifestyle, but it is mitigated by the fact that we're also not just zooming like you see so many YouTube van lifers. You know, they're zooming everywhere to come up with a new story, a new adventure to keep their audience engaged. And we're not doing that. So for like the past month and a half, almost 2 months, we've driven the van very little because we parked it to work, you know. So I think it balances out, and um, and we're trying to do offsets, you know, carbon offsets and things like that in the process, because we're very aware that this lifestyle keeps us mobile on the road and using some resources that we're sensitive to. So, but planning, in fact, I have a blog. I'm still trying to figure out. I'd like to do a blog on van life and have it be separate from the rest of my life as a photographer. And one of them is called "A Van, a Man, a Plan. Do we really need to?" Question mark. And it's just about, do we need to plan? You know, we have this freedom and we could just wander, but to talk about the importance of having at least a general plan, like let's go to Zion in autumn. Well, we could go in spring or summer, but it's not as visually pretty and it's hot, you know.
And
So
crowded.
and very crowded. Well, unfortunately, autumn is just as crowded. We have been there twice now in the past 2 years, and it's just amazing. They don't stop the shuttle until like mid or late December. I don't
Right.
know, maybe ever
Wow.
now. I don't know. But it's gotten crazy. And like it got so crowded that you are no longer allowed to stand on Watchman Bridge to photograph the river with the watchman. It used
Hmm.
to be workshop instructors were not allowed to take their groups there under your rules. And we were ticked off about that because the public was crowding the place, you know. And it was like, well, what's up with that? And now, as of I think 2 years ago, no stopping and standing on the bridge because it was a traffic nightmare. So we've overpopulated and overcrowded all of these beautiful locations, and that's sad, but it's still a place we love, and so we go and we do our own quiet sort of separate thing. And you know, I don't need a picture of the watchman at sunset from the bridge. You know, not only do I have one, but you know, there's some that are stunning that are already out there, and so I look for personal vision in that park wherever I go. It's trying to find that something different.
So how do people let's tell everybody how they can find you if you're interested in doing a really good workshop. Of course, you know, it's a funny thing. Brenda, John and I are in this business, but we love having people on and letting them. There's always room for great workshop leaders here.
Yep.
So we're
Yep.
not we're all about helping out, and you know, tell everybody how they can find you, and maybe what you have coming up and where there's
Sure.
space, what have you.
Yeah. Well, we are currently, we're still setting up some stuff for late fall and 26 and into 27, but we've got workshops listed up on my website, which is brendatharp.com, and you can find me there. And often in the workshop that Jed and I are leading together, I will have a link in the description that takes you over to his website as well. And sometimes we'll post a gallery on my website together of the place that we're teaching to interest people. And that's really the easiest way. I also started up sort of a blog, if you will, at Substack. So it's brendatharp.substack.com. And that has been really fun. It's kind of breathed new life into the fact that I always loved writing, and I loved writing blog posts, But then I was finding that after a while with social media, people weren't going to your website to read your blogs, and the reader the participation dropped off a lot. And then I started saying on Facebook, I've just posted a blog, and it would show a picture and people would click like and never go and read the blog.
Right.
So I decided, well, I'm going to try to write articles and do some insightful stuff over at Substack, and you can subscribe for free. Or you can pay a small, pittance to buy me cups of coffee and keep me writing and keep me inspired. So those are the areas that you'll find my workshop listings. Um, what we've got coming up, we've got, Death Valley. I've got a couple of speaking engagements, Photoclave in Santa Cruz in mid-March. It's like the 20th through the 23rd of March. And then in early June, we're doing a week of exploring your creative spirit on Whidbey Island for Pacific Northwest Art School.
When are you going to be there?
It's the first week of June.
Geez, I'm going to be there the third week of June. Maybe we'll run into each other.
Yeah, well, we're going to be in the area in general because after
Okay.
that's done, and even before that, leading up to it, we're planning on wandering and exploring the Northwest during May, early June. It's just a gorgeous time to be up there.
Yeah.
And I saw that you were on the schedule, and
Yeah, we'll
so that's,
talk.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Well, that's
But
great. It's so good, to see people like you who, you know, I mean, we've been around and we kind of know that each other's around and all, other people like ourselves. But it's great to have you on,
well, I appreciate it. And I
and
think you and I met, if I'm not mistaken, met physically in, oh, I was doing a workshop for Cuyahoga,
yeah,
the Forest
yeah,
Society, the
yep,
National Park.
yep,
And
yep,
and I ran into you on the path somewhere there. And I was
yep,
like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's how long ago that was.
That was a long time. In fact, that uh, when I first lived in Ohio, that was when I really first started doing workshops, and that was God had to be in the 90s, in the 90s, and I remember I was John. You love this. It was $250 a person back when I started.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think I'm up to 350 now. But at any rate, it's a great life, and it
So,
was to have people around like Brenda and so many others, Lewis and everybody. It's really good. We could go on here forever, but
well, I do want to say I like what you said. There is always room for really great workshop instructors.
absolutely,
And I think all three of us have experienced that there's a lot of people that are in their 30s and 40s that either have left their corporate jobs. I haven't figured this out, but people exponentially exploded onto the market of teaching workshops and leading photo
yeah.
tours.
Names I've never seen.
Never seen, some of them are great,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, but it's like, where the heck did they come from? And how are they affording? You and I both know if you're going to teach a good workshop, you want to go someplace first and scout it out. You don't just say, I'm going to lead a workshop in the Lofoten Islands, having never been there before, unless you're hiring a local guide who is also a
Hmm.
photographer who really knows, then you can rely on that for your first one. But I see people going all over leading, countless workshops and it's like, well, where did they come from? How did they get started? I'm always so
I'll take it one step further. I see people leading workshops taking more photographs than their customers taking.
oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I see it all the time, and
Yeah,
I don't see it from people like you and from people like John and I and other great leaders. And there are a lot. We've had them on here, and
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
but if you're a client and you're trying to vet a workshop leader, and you don't know who they are or what their reputation is, it's tough, and you're spending a lot of money and what have you. But anyhow, that's a conversation for another
It
day.
really is, isn't
And
it?
we're
Mm.
all I know is that I know that you and us and other people, we're doing it right. We put our head on a pillow at night. No, we did the right thing.
Yep.
John, anything you want to hammer home here before we
No.
put a
Other than
nail in it?
I'll put links to all of Brenda's websites and all of her work
Yeah.
up on wetalkphoto.com. And yeah, just with that, Brenda, thank you so much for making the time to chat with us.
It was
Yeah,
a
and,
pleasure.
yeah,
Really.
and hang in for a minute for the post-show party
Wrap
here.
up.
Okay.
We break out the champagne and
What? Virtual champagne?
yeah,
I have
Yeah.
yeah,
water. This is
yeah.
the
Well,
water disappeared. Wait.
thank everybody for again being here. And if you have any questions, comments, you can go to wetalkphoto@gmail.com and subscribe and do all that good stuff that we all like you to do. And thanks for coming back. We'll be back with another really interesting guest here in about a week to 10 days, right, John?
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be great.
Cool.
Brenda, thank you. Safe travels. I look forward to running into you in the field, hopefully this year.
Yes, indeed.
Yes,
Indeed.
indeed.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye,
All right.
folks.
Bye,
All
everybody.
right.